Big game, big talk. Here we go. Clemson, Ohio State for a fifth time all-time, 3 times in the playoffs in the past 5 years. I think a lot of people that are sitting right here had an idea that these two programs might run into each other once in a while as this playoff thing unfolds year to year. What a panel we got going here. Top to bottom right now as it stands, we got DeAndre, BGPO Football Funk. You can catch him on YouTube, as you can Brian Knight, a.k.a. Bobby Durkins. And, of course, my college football coast-to-coast running mate there, Pigskin Pete. And catch him on his YouTube channel as well. You should be subscribed to all these guys. No question about that. How we doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Doing good.
We've accounted for everybody, and nobody's broken the bank for Christmas. So we're all at least responsible in that way, if not other ways.
Well, I'm looking
at you, Brian.
I try to be responsible, but come on. But now breaking the bank at Christmas, no. But responsible, come on, guys. We know who I am.
There's no way that Bobby is responsible at any time, any year.
Okay, that's accurate.
I'm going to ask that everybody leave their questions or comments, their debate topics there in the live chat, and I will be reviewing those and serving them up to the panel here. And I'm going to start out this way. Did anybody here foresee that this was going to become some kind of rivalry here like it has in the last 5 years? Ohio State and Clemson.
I did just because of the landscape of college football, the way the playoff system works. We're going to see how many teams have been in the playoffs since this thing started. I think we talked about this the other day, Mark. I think 8 total teams in the past 6 years now.
You can also look at it this way, Pigskin. 28 spots in 7 years, so 7 times 4, 28. We can count that high. These 3 teams, if you include Alabama, have taken up 16 of the 28 spots.
Yeah. So the same way that I could see Alabama and Clemson becoming sort of a rivalry in the postseason, the same can be said for Ohio State. So it's not surprising to me at all. Looking at the two programs, they're very similar. As Dabo Swinney says, they recruit a lot of the same people, so they're very familiar with the personnel on the other side of the football. And let's face it, just like Alabama's pretty much dominating the SEC, Ohio State's dominating the Big Ten, Clemson's dominating the ACC. So, no, it's not surprising to me.
There also has something to do with you guys are kind of getting under some Buckeyes fans' skin for there's a dash there, there's a 4 somewhere, there's a 0. I don't know how the math equation works out, but it tends to bother a lot of Ohio State fans.
It doesn't help when you call them Clemson's their daddy. That definitely does not help the situation. I can attest to that.
You would never do that.
No,
I don't believe it. You would never ever trash talk somebody.
No.
I mean, it's not like you and I would ever take over, I don't know, Mark's Miami Hurricane channel and talk trash to somebody on their own channel for an hour. We would never do that.
No, it's not as if I have a video on YouTube where I took a paternity test to verify that Clemson is indeed Ohio State's daddy.
Yeah, sometimes I got to let it go on Twitter, putting up comments about them. But, I mean, let's be honest. I don't think Ohio State fans believe Clemson belong because Ohio State got the 3rd biggest school in the country, one of the biggest athletic programs compared to Clemson. Clemson's in a small little area of South Carolina, and they think, Ohio State's a blue blood, and they don't think Clemson belongs, and they hate the fact that they're 4-0, 0-4 versus Clemson, and Clemson beat them 31-0, and got probably the best coach Ohio State ever had, Woody Hayes, fired. I mean, and so there's a lot of hatred there probably on the Ohio State side too.
Did Clemson get Woody Hayes fired, or did Woody Hayes get Woody Hayes fired?
I think he was mad for some reason.
I was about to
know he was mad about it. I mean, it wasn't his fault. He threw the interception. The quarterback threw the interception. He punched the middle linebacker. What was it? A defensive tackle. But
I think I'm the only one here who saw that game.
I was born in '80, so I did not see the Gator Bowl that year. No,
I was 77, so I probably didn't remember it.
Yeah, 82. I think Michael Jackson had just did the whole moonwalk thing, and I was still trying to figure out how to swallow milk. There you go, Mark.
This is the old man right here. This is the old man. I remember watching that game. I thought it was hilarious that Keith Jackson was doing the game, Gator Bowl game 1978. Frank Broyles, who you three probably aren't familiar with, but he was Keith Jackson's running mate for a long time. They wanted to do everything they possibly could do to excuse away Woody Hayes punching a player. I didn't really see it. I don't know what happened. Maybe, they tried to explain it away in any possible way to not see what was evident, even in grainy, pre-HD standard def, that, he lifted the helmet and took a shot right at his jaw.
Did he ever say why he did it? He just did it just to be just mad at the time?
Just mad. He was a mad guy. He didn't like to lose. And that wasn't his only issue on the football field. The guy, a few different times, took a yard marker, right? Can you imagine somebody doing this? A coach today took a yard marker, a first down yard marker, just took it and smashed it right over his knee several times, did this during games.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Would just do a Bo Jackson right over his knee with a yard marker. All right, we're probably losing some views here because nobody can relate to 1978 except for me. So we'll bring it up to the more recent past.
Yeah, I think that game with in the Orange Bowl where Watson went off, not Watson, but
Watkins.
Sammy Watkins went off. I think that irritates Ohio State fans because I think they were missing 4 DBs that game, and they had a really good defensive line with Boise. I think Bennett was part of that team. I think that game irritates Buckeye fans that they lost that game like that. They were much more talented than Clemson at that time.
I'd say from top to bottom, they were more talented at that time, but that's an all-time great Clemson roster. If you look, especially offensively, Taj Boyd, Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins, those three guys alone are all three of the best players they ever put on the Clemson paw. So, that game could have gone either way. It came down to the end. But,
it was a great game. They've all been great games except for one.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So was that the beginning of the Clemson surge, the Clemson launch? I go back to that LSU game that they won at the Peach Bowl with a remarkable 4th and 16 or 18 conversion. So it was led by offense, because I look back on that Clemson 2013 team that was really good, top 10 team. Florida State obviously was still so much better than them at that point, but it was a great offensive team. And we saw what happened a couple of years earlier against West Virginia in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
Did the defense lag behind the offense when it came to recruiting, building up the program, getting this thing rolling?
I believe that the LSU game in the Peach Bowl, which, by the way, I was there. It was on New Year's Eve. My wife and I went, which was a great time, by the way. For anybody who's never tailgated or partied with LSU fans prior to a game, you have not lived. I promise you that. I think that was the statement game, that the breakout game for Clemson, and then the Ohio State game was sort of a confirmation of that.
I think that was definitely the game that was confirmation that Clemson didn't get an upset win against a team that they wasn't supposed to get, and they're the same old Clemson, and that they were using the talent. Go back to a question you were talking about just a second ago. You were talking about the recruiting with defense and offense. If you look during the Bowden days, we had some really good recruits on the defensive side of the ball. Several times, Ricky Saub, Daquan Bowers, the list goes on. But I think where we were always missing something was that great leader at quarterback. We were seemingly stuck in between the option and the pass era for Clemson. But what really changed for us is when we got those skill players, we got the quarterback, and then, of course, putting together the pieces for the coaching staff with Venables. And so to me, I think that win against Ohio State, I mean, that was a team that just won the national championship. They had all these who's who, like Pete said, they were a better team defensively than us. I mean, that was a who's who team. But I think that was the one that definitely said, okay, we're actually for real. And so I think that was a monumental game.
And I think we also need to thank Tennessee and Lane Kiffin for not taking Boyd. I mean, he's the reason why he ended up at Clemson. Because remember, Boyd was committed to Tennessee at one point, and Lane Kiffin said, "You're not my type of quarterback." So that's really what got it started too. So we should give thanks to Tennessee for letting us have Boyd. I mean, a lot of people don't really remember that, but Boyd, he was highly recruited, and Tennessee wanted him really bad. And when Lane Kiffin took over, Boyd ended up coming there. I mean, and Chad Morris, he did his thing too. And I think what helped us after Chad left is that our defense used to get tired out so much because Morris was like, go, go, go. And then, when Elliott and Scott took over, they kind of slowed it down and ran the ball a little bit more. I mean, that offense was amazing with Sammy Watkins, but I think that helped out too with Chad Morris coming in.
I think the offense evolved over that time. Chad Morris was a necessary piece to that. Clemson was not built like what's the term we always hear, guys? Like an SEC team, right? Big up front. Clemson was not built that way, so they took the Oregon Chip Kelly approach and tried to just move the ball around, spread it around, and that was what Chad Morris did. And we see how well that worked for him after leaving Clemson. It didn't work very well. So when Clemson finally got the type of player in there that they wanted, then they changed the offense accordingly, I think.
Got a question coming in here from Lucas Abner. Are Clemson's defensive backs as good as Northwestern's? Can they shut down Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson?
Considering they all 5 stars, yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going on.
Northwestern's got a good secondary. Now, the one defense I'm going to make for the question there, no, I am not comparing Northwestern's talent on defense, especially in the secondary, with Clemson's, but they really can play. And as we all know, the productivity on the field doesn't always equal the recruiting rankings, especially when you're talking about Northwestern. So they have a good defensive backfield. But regardless, Ohio State's wide receivers, which are deep and talented against Clemson's secondary.
And Olave and Wilson didn't play versus Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken,
no,
right?
Did not play.
Yeah, Olave did?
No.
Did not play.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, Kendrick is going to be a first-round pick, made first-team ACC. Booth, who's in and out of the lineup, was a 5-star player, and he barely plays, and he was second team ACC. So to me, I think they can match up with him.
I don't know if I can remember the last time this season, and this is not a Clemson problem. This is a problem that's happening throughout college football because of COVID and injuries combined. When's the last time we had both Booth and Kendrick and Turner, or all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time during a game? I can't really remember. Maybe a mid-season. Does anybody know? It's been a while.
Wake Forest in the first game of the year.
Yeah, maybe so.
And we're not going to see it this week because Turner's out for the first half anyway because of the targeting call in the ACC championship, and I believe that's a big deal in this game. Certainly in the first, if Clemson can get away unscathed, and when I say unscathed, I mean not giving up 3 touchdowns in the air because Turner's out, then I think it's going to that's going to work in Clemson's favor. But we will definitely see Ryan Day and the Ohio State offensive staff try to exploit mismatches when Turner is off the field. And I don't blame him because if you look at the depth chart behind him at safety, it's not very good. So you have Charleston next in line. And then the third guy is Tyler Venables, who's a true freshman, Brent Venables' son. So Turner is our base free safety. And after that, it's a huge drop off.
Yeah.
I'm going to further explain my last comment about Clemson's secondary. I don't know a whole lot about Clemson's secondary or how well they're playing right now, so I'm not evaluating their secondary. I'll put it this way. Northwestern has better secondary than Ohio State. They're not as athletically gifted, talented, don't have the recruiting rankings next to the names, but Northwestern is a better secondary than Ohio State. At least they're performing better and have this year than Ohio State secondary. So that was the only clarification I was making there. I think this is a really good question out of the guy who's got 18,000 numbers next to his name, and then it says views. Probably something close to how many views we'll have on this video once it's posted. So from the standpoint of logical Clemson observers, fans, analysts, all the things that you guys are, how do you guys view the calls that were made in the game last year? So we had a targeting, of course, against Sean Wade that gave Clemson a first down late in the first half that led to a touchdown when Ohio State was going to get off the field. Ohio State's second best cornerback off the field for the rest of the game. You had a running into, then roughing the punter deep in Clemson's territory, which obviously Clemson was punting to Ohio State. That extended the drive. Clemson scored a touchdown on that drive. Then you had the incomplete / catch and strip by, I believe it was Jeffrey Okuda, that led to an Ohio State touchdown that gave them a momentary lead before it was taken off the board. And really, the J.K. Dobbins, he dropped the ball. I'm not even going to touch that because that's a legitimate call. He didn't catch the ball. That was a missed opportunity by Ohio State, but the officials had nothing to do with that.
Sounds like noise to me, Mark.
Totally.
You can
totally noise. If you put
go
yourself
through-
on the other side of those three calls, you would not in any way.
Well, I can tell you this. I've been on YouTube for 3 years. I've been a part of some bad losses on the Clemson side. I've never made excuses for it. You can go through any game tape of any game where you lose a game and say this should have happened, that should have happened. The fact that we're a year later, we're still talking about this is mind-boggling to me. It's funny that they don't ever mention the fact that Travis Etienne had 3 touchdowns, 127 receiving yards. Trevor Lawrence had over 100 yards rushing, and that one that they gashed him on. And the fact that Ohio State had a chance to win the game at the end and threw an interception in the end zone. All of those things don't matter because there might have been a bad call on a fumble.
They don't kick field goals in the red zone.
To me, it sounds like excuse making.
Well,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I have made both claims. Ohio State lost the game. Clemson won the game. Etienne did what he did in the fourth quarter as a pass receiver. Trevor Lawrence did what he did as a runner. The Clemson defense made the plays that they needed to make in the end. Both can be true. They don't have to be exclusive. So I have made all the points on the Clemson side that they won the game. Ohio State made mistakes that some Clemson forced, which that's football. Others that were inexcusable, unforced mistakes that Ohio State made. That's football as well. But that doesn't, both can be true. But I will say that those 3 plays, in my estimation, were incorrect calls by the official.
Do those 3 calls, if they go the other way, guarantee a Buckeye win?
No. I think it's pretty easy to deduce that they would have won the game, though. Does it guarantee it? No, they happen at various stages of the game.
Right.
No, not at all.
And I've talked about this on your show before and on my show, and I've ranted and raved about this. This whole slowing down plays that happen at 100 miles per hour to the speed of a snail. I've enjoyed that we actually have replay now to get the obvious mistakes right, but then we've overreached. I'll go to a play. Notre Dame fans are going to wet their britches, but I don't care. We just beat the crap out of them. So, I mean, got them back there. But that fumble by Amari Rogers, they slowed that sucker down to 1 mile per hour. Oh, well, that was a fumble. As to where game speed, it looked like really he didn't. So I'm still up in the air because, quite honestly, I used to ref football. And I'm telling you, bang, bang plays happen. You slow stuff down, and you've got, Bubba Joe over here, drunk as old coot, kicked back in his camouflage recliner going, those dumb son of a guns can't see anything. And my God, he can barely see 5 feet in front of him because he's so hammered drunk. When you slow down everything and you get 70 angles from it, and now we have the Skycam view, and then we have the pylon view, and we have the water girl view, and we have the pom-pom view, and then we've got whatever they've put in Herb Street's hair to focus this week on it. You get all these views, and then before you know it, it's like, what do these guys see? These guys are just morons. I mean, No, we have so many views, and we have made the game so slow that it is now excruciating. And I still think it was a bang play. I still think that if you're an Ohio State fan, it's a fumble. If you're a Clemson fan, you can't say he completely had control because a defender's arm was in there and it was hard for him to control.
Yeah,
there we
before
go.
everybody else continues on that one, I want to make it clear that I don't think any one of those 3 plays was egregiously missed by the officials or the review. I think that they're all questionable, and they all just happen to go against Ohio State.
Sure, and I get that. Once again, if I'm a Buckeye, if I'm a Clemson fan, it's one of those things where you're teetering. But at the same time, the game that's going to go on Friday night, none of that is going to matter. The Ohio State fans who wants to keep bringing this up, that game is over. We have to accept that blowout by LSU, it is over. That game's over. By the way, that team is over. We saw how that team did after they lost everybody, including their custodian. And Clemson's back. Clemson's back in it, anyway. But my point to that is that has nothing to do with this game this coming week or this coming Friday. And 2 very different teams are coming out there in the sense of, well, I say very different teams. They're really not different on one side. One side did lose a lot of talent, and it's going to be a very interesting game.
Hey, see you later, David Knight. Have a good night, buddy. We'll miss you.
I can't wait to see this matchup with Breezy Davis going against the peak of Ohio State. Because last year, I thought Ohio State out physical us. It's going to be interesting because they already got a taste of how a good offensive line plays in Notre Dame. I want to see that matchup. That's going to be nasty. If you like old school football, Ohio State, the offensive line versus Clemson's defensive line, that's going to be nasty, man. If you love football, that's what it's going to be at.
Well, Brian, you started there. Whoever wants to jump in, is Clemson better today than they were at this point last year? Which team was better?
Oh, this is a good question. At the beginning of the season, Clemson was not as good as they were last year. Now I think that they are. And this is the big question, and this is the big debate about the whole Dabo Swinney comments and who has the actual advantage here by playing 6 games versus 11 games. Right? This is the debate. Is it a disadvantage to play 6 games versus 11? I think that Ohio State is at a disadvantage by playing only 6 games this year. And if you just look at their roster and Clemson's, look at the players that they lost on defense, both teams, to the NFL in 2020. Clemson is a completely different team defensively now than they were on September 1. We've seen it. And you can just look at the roster. It's loaded with freshmen and sophomores. Those reps were imperative to Clemson. If this game between Clemson and Ohio State was being played 6 or 8 weeks ago, I think this is a much more dangerous game for Clemson to lose than it is today. And now I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know Ohio State's roster as good as I do Clemson's, but I'm just from what I'm seeing in the few games that they have played, is that they are lacking experience as well. They haven't had a chance to gel. Now, is this Ohio State's fault? Of course, it's not their fault. It's the Big Ten's fault for bowing out early in the season and not giving them 8, 9, 10, 11 games to play. But it is what it is, and I think that actually benefits Clemson going into this game. Offensively, I think Clemson is better than they were last year. I think they're more explosive, even though, and again, if you would have told me 2 months ago that you're not going to have Justin Ross, you're not going to have Frank Ladson, you're not going to have Joe Ngata, 3 starting receivers, and you would tell me that the offense is going to be even more explosive than it was last year, I would have called you a liar. But that has been the case. And I think that's been the maturation of Trevor Lawrence. I think it's been the maturation of Travis Etienne. Even though Etienne's numbers don't reflect that on the ground, he's a better, more well-rounded player in the passing game and in the blocking and the quarterback blocking. So and the run blocking. So I think Clemson's a slightly better team than they were last year, and I'm not sure that you can say about the same about Ohio State. But again, I'm clearly biased and somewhat ignorant on the subject as far as the full roster of Ohio State goes.
I don't think Clemson's offensive line is as good as it was last year, but those guys were really good. I mean, I just I don't think Ohio State has the defensive line they had last year. I don't think Clemson's as good as it was on the offensive line last year. I need to see more push up the front. We played better against Notre Dame, but we struggled to run the ball this year, mainly because they kept 6 or 7 and 8 man boxes against Clemson this year. So we didn't have that tall receiver going down the field. But Cornell Powell, man, he done stepped up. I mean, we've been waiting 5 years to see this dude step up like he has, and he's did a good job. But I don't think our offensive line is good. But I think offensively, yeah, we're better in certain ways, but I don't think our offensive line is that good like what last year.
I think it's a progression because we saw the numbers that Clemson put up last year offensively. And, Pete, we talked about it several times, how people were saying, oh, their numbers. Statistically, Clemson's numbers were better last year offensively than they were the year before when they won the national championship in certain areas. But that's not what I worry about, because I was getting kicked in the nuts week in and week out by Clemson fans telling me, you don't know what you're talking about, when I said over and over and over that Clemson was not hungry enough. And then they got into a game where they played a team who had a ton of talent, once-in-a-lifetime talent, coaching that was just coaching at an above elite level, and it exposed their lack of preparation and their lack of hunger. And preparation and hunger there's a correlation there. But what I saw the other night when they played Notre Dame was not a team that came out with a bunch of talent and they were just trying to get back at Notre Dame. That team came out and they had something to say. They had something to say that we're hungry. We want the national championship. We're just not going to look at each other and go, he's good and he's good and he's good and he's good and he's the number one draft. They're not going to do that. They're going to come in. They were hungry the other night. So I believe that hunger is what is the difference. And I believe that it will carry us through a win this week, and barring injury. And I've had people say, well, that's your out just in case they lose. No, that's the ABCs of football, moron. Health is one of the cornerstones of any football team. But as long as they stay healthy, I believe this team stands a great chance of winning the national championship.
Ohio State's flat out not as good as they were last year. For two basic reasons. They don't have the top end talent. So like Clemson, we're talking of 2 of the 4 programs in the country. They can lose a bunch of NFL talent and replace them with just as many stars in the recruiting rankings. But that doesn't mean the players is good. They haven't proven it at that level. And Chase Young was the best pass rusher in the country last year. He's gone. He hasn't been replaced. He's been replaced by guys that were recruited just as heavily as he was, but they're not as productive. They're good players, but they're a step away from where he was in getting to the quarterback. Jeffrey Okuda was arguably the best cornerback in the country. When you take tackling into consideration, he was, and that's why he was one of the 3 top players selected in the NFL draft. As a cover corner, he was arguably the best. He's gone. He's not been replaced. J.K. Dobbins plays right now in the NFL like a first rounder. He was not a first rounder, but he hasn't been replaced. Now, Trey Sermon had a great game against Northwestern with 331 on the ground, but the 4 of us could have probably $120. Like, Ohio State's offensive line was just clearing gaps, that Mack trucks could drive through. So I don't know that Trey Sermon, he's not J.K. Dobbins. And so there are players right out of the gate. And then the other one would be Jordan Fuller, who's playing lights out for the Rams right now as a first-round pick. He's out of the secondary as well.
Yeah, that's the biggest question I think Ohio State has coming to the game, because who's going to guard I can't remember. I can't think right. Rogers right now, because Rogers plays the slot, and Wade guards out on the boundary. So who's going to guard? And that's one of the problems that Ohio State is having. And then another question is the decision-making that Justin Fields did last year, where he had 38 touchdowns with 1 interception. And this year he has 8 interceptions. So it's going to be amazing to see how he's going to adjust. And he has a hurt finger for this game.
So you hit on it right there, DeAndre. Justin Fields is a great player, great talent. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. But he's more of a wild card than I would have expected him to be at this point. Where if Trevor Lawrence has a bad game, I'm going to be shocked. He's only going to have a bad game if he, like any other quarterback, is sitting on his rear most of the night. That's what's going to cause him to have a bad game. And I see him playing. I just know what Trevor Lawrence is going to do. He's a complete known factor. He's great. He's never not great in a big game. The games where he has a couple hiccups, he always corrects them, and he's always great by the finish. I just know exactly what I'm getting. What I'm surprised to see is that when I was watching that game last year, and then in the aftermath of the game, I'm thinking, wow, I wish I would have seen Justin Fields at 100% because he had a knee brace. It compromised his mobility, and that had been going on for the last 4 or 5 games of that season. And here we are a year later, his knee's fine, he's mobile. I'm thinking, well, during the playoffs next year, he'll be good to go. But he was on fire throwing the football going into last year's game. And he actually had a good game against Clemson. He had one bad mistake that Elijah Simmons picked off. But and then the miscommunication at the end of the game, whoever's fault that was. But I thought he played well throwing the football, but he's not playing well right now.
That is the key to this game, Mark, is which Justin Fields are we going to see? Because like you just said, when Justin Fields is playing his best football, he's as good as anybody in the country. And obviously the weapons he has around him at Ohio State, Chris Olave and the likes of other guys, Master Teague, they can score with anybody. If he's able to do that, if he plays his best game of the year, certainly Ohio State can win this game. I mean, the talent across the board is pretty much equal. If you look at NFL talent, that's how you evaluate talent. If Justin Fields has a game or two, a game like he had once or twice this season, and doesn't play up to his potential, I think things could get out of hand. That's how good Clemson's offense is.
I think the key for me is and I've taken a shot at Justin Fields several times for this world-class athlete, fantastic talent. The guy has, if he can just stay healthy, he has a chance to play on Sundays. We know that. But here we are. He's got an issue with his hand, in the Northwestern game. And I'm sitting there going, this guy has been sitting out for half the season. He's played only 5 games. Oh, he's got a hand injury. I mean, it's just one thing after another with this guy. I've talked about this before. I'm friends with guys who played college football. You have to learn how to take a flipping hit, no matter who you are. Trevor Lawrence has got his bell rung so many times, it is ridiculous. He's been bent in these odd ways. I'm like, there he goes. There goes his knee. There he goes. There goes his shoulder. Guy hops up, throws a 55-yard touchdown, and burns you on a 30-yard run. Justin Fields is not that guy. He's for some reason he has not learned how to take a hit. Now I know somebody on here is going to be a smart aleck and said, "Well, if he hit you, you would feel it." I'm not a college football player. I'm a dad of 2 and a 38-year-old man who hadn't exercised in weeks. So yeah, I mean, no crap, Sherlock. But the point about that is, this guy. This is going to. I mean, forget this game. If this guy doesn't get this under control, his draft stock's going to drop, which, I mean, that's not the argument tonight, but I'm just saying, you want a healthy guy or versus a guy who can be a Superman as long as somebody hadn't sprinkled kryptonite in his underwear, and that seems to happen every other week for him.
In all fairness to Justin Fields, a thumb injury has nothing to do with learning how to take a hit. I mean, I think he hit his thumb on some guy's helmet. That's sort of a fluke type of injury. I don't think that has.
But it's always something. It's always something with him.
With Justin Fields? It's always something?
Did you see him in that Wisconsin game last year? There was a design run. He comes out there. He's bigger than the DB who's about to hit him. He knows he's about to get hit. He knows it. I mean, it's like sticking your hand on a hot oven. I know it's going to burn. He knows he's about to get hit. He rolls around like somebody came up and sucker punched him. It happened again later in that game. This happened off and on with him. I think even though he is a big guy and he is a fantastic athlete, Trevor Lawrence is just tougher than he is, period.
I think that you guys have your hint as to when and if Clemson wins this game, what Ohio State fans are going to say, so you guys can get ready. Justin Fields' thumb was sprained.
Yes.
I see the gentleman up here. He talks about the Ohio State receivers. And I would just like to say this: Kendrick is a number 1 first round pick too. So it's like him and Olave, they're gonna go at it. They had a pretty good game last year, so I can't wait to see that matchup. And like I said, Booth, Goodrich, and I don't know about Sheraton Jones, but they were, like I said, Booth and Goodrich was 4 and 5 in their recruiting classes. And people have been waiting for them to get on the field, but because of Moreland and Terrell, they never could last year. So, I mean, these guys are talented. I mean, don't get me wrong. Ohio State's real talented on offense. I can't wait to see the matchup. But, I mean, those are matchups you just got to love as a football fan, that Clemson defense going against Ohio State's offense. I really don't have a lot of respect for Big Ten football, as y'all know, but I really can't wait to see this matchup.
Then what is your respect level for the ACC then? That's my question.
Mark, Big Ten football boring to me. Ohio State, I think we talked about this before. Ohio State and Clemson has the same records since Clemson started their run against their conferences and won the same amount of championships. So
DeAndre will make comments to me like that. He'll say, I think the Big Ten sucks, and I'll say they just went 5-1 this year against the ACC. What kind of level of respect do you have for the ACC?
No, I cannot stand the Big Ten, especially that team in blue. I might hate them more than I hate Ohio State. But
how does Clemson's defensive line stack up against previous editions? Because we know that's been it was legendary a couple of years ago.
Well, I mean, 2018 Clemson defensive line might be one of the great defensive lines in history.
Sure.
Not just for Clemson, I mean in college football history. So from a talent standpoint, it stacks up to even that team from a talent standpoint. From an experience standpoint, that's a different story. Now, again, this comes back to what we were talking about earlier with being able to play 11 games. That's not the same defensive line that we saw in September. It's much, much better and much deeper than it was before. But I think if we're comparing Clemson's defensive line to Ohio State's defensive line, or is that what we're doing? We're just comparing Clemson's defensive line.
Greenshield wanted to know how Ohio State's offensive line would fare against Clemson's defensive line. And for me to get a gauge on that, I was just wondering how Clemson's D-line looked compared to previous.
Here's the answer I would give you to that. I think we can all agree here that Notre Dame's offensive line is pretty damn good compared to the rest of the offensive lines in the country. They had 6 sacks in the ACC championship game. Now, there's a different element to Ohio State's offense compared to Notre Dame's, because clearly they have a dual threat. They can both run and pass the ball. Notre Dame, not so much. They're a little bit more one-dimensional. They're definitely more of a running team than a passing team. So I'm not saying Clemson's going to go out there and get 6 or 7 sacks against Ohio State, but I think that's a good gauge just by pure talent on offensive line, that Clemson's defensive line, when healthy, with Tyler Davis in there, which is a big plus, with the linebackers healthy, Mike Jones and Skowski, it's a different scenario. So I think it's every bit as good as any other defensive line we've seen from Clemson over the past few years.
I think this defensive line, if everybody would have came in healthy, like Xavier Thomas, nobody knows what's going on with Justin Falter. He just disappeared off the face of the earth. And if all of them would have came back, this defensive line probably been more talented the way they're playing right now. But I think this defensive line is just great. I mean, Bukowski, number 7, I can't pronounce his name. He's real good. I mean, think about it. He came as a 210 redshirt freshman. He's good. You got Murphy. You got Henry. I mean, Brazier. I mean, we just loaded. Upchurches came along. We're loaded. And think about this. All these guys will be back next year. None of them are going anywhere because all of them are sophomores and freshmen. Henry's not going pro. Xavier Thomas got to get a draft stock up. So they guys will be back. This defense is just as talented as the last one. Like, just a lack of experience compared to the one that we saw in 2018.
I think the key to this game, really, we've talked about Justin Fields, but we've seen Brent Venables destroy incredible quarterbacks by his schemes and by him using his talent. And with Skowski, Jones, the talent that's back at the linebacker position from injury. We have the line you talked about. They're going to hit Fields. They are going to hit him. They are going to batter him. They're coming for him. That's their game plan. But it's. I mean, once again, Clemson is in a place where they have so much talent, especially on the defensive line, that they can still swing in and out, even missing guys. You see KJ Henry. I mean, KJ Henry comes out and just does his thing and just kills it. And you're like, who is he? If you're a drive-by football fan who really doesn't pay attention to the other names on the Clemson football team, KJ Henry is this just man of a machine playing for them, and he's just another guy out there on the field. But we saw the difference, like you said, Pete. I don't like to compare Notre Dame and Ohio State because there is differences there. I mean, there's differences there. But notice the difference between a healthy team versus an unhealthy team playing against Ian Book. Ian Book, after that, people were just foaming at the mouth over Ian Book. After that game, and it's like, guys, we were, they beat us. It is what it is, but we were missing a lot of players, and you're acting like he is right up there with Trevor, and we all know that's a lie. And then we saw what happened. 6 sacks. I'm with you. I don't see 6 sacks in this game. I see a lot of hits, probably a couple of sacks, some poorly thrown passes could lead to some interceptions. But they're coming for him, and they're going to hit him because not only is that what they do, it is what they have to do with some questions in the secondary as that we've had all season long.
I like what they're doing with Simpson.
Mark, I know this is your show, but this chat section here, I've just been watching the chat. This chat session is amazing and fantastic. I think way more entertaining than we are.
Okay, I will make one comment about the chat section. As you can see, if you type too much and I post that to the screen, I don't feel like completely bearing Pigskin Pete and Brian sometimes. So I've refrained from grabbing and posting a few of those just because I knew that they were going to stay up there. Let me grab this comment real quick just because it's a super chat from I Can Sell You. Wow, this person's got some power. Thank you for all you do, Mark. These teams are evenly matched, and the winner will have a very tough time with Bama. I feel Ohio State may win. I Can Sell You. I don't know who they root for, but they are leaning Ohio State. Into the chat. What do we have here, Pigskin, that you're looking at?
Where do I start? I mean, I'm just talking about as a whole here. There's no one individual comment. It's just it's been amazing and fantastic since the start.
Well, that's because you came over.
Yeah.
You brought the amazing and fantastic with you.
Yes.
And my chat has benefited from that.
Right.
Who's number 21 for Clemson? He's a freshman. He's played really good coming in for Turner a little bit. I can't remember his name. I know he's a freshman.
Well, Tyler Venables is you talking about?
Is it Green?
Am
I thinking about Green?
Green's a cornerback. He's a freshman, yeah.
Number 21, right?
Yeah.
He's fast. I didn't know about his recruiting. I think he's out of Texas somewhere, but that dude is fast, man. He looks lovely back there. I know you had mentioned about Turner earlier.
Yeah, they do use Green at both cornerback and safety, so maybe they'll rotate him in and out, especially with Turner being out and out. He's labeled on the depth chart as a cornerback for some reason, but
how y'all like how they using Simpson? Number 22, because last week I saw him lining up at defensive end, and he got around that corner, boy. That dude, I know he played running back in high school, but that dude is fast. He's a tremendous athlete.
Yeah, they're using him at end. They'll use him at tackle. They'll use him anywhere they can. They're using him a lot like they used Wilkins. Wilkins played a lot of times. People don't remember that. Christian Wilkins played a lot several times. Yeah.
I like how they circle him around. And a guy like him, he's crazy talented, could start absolutely anywhere, and he's lost in the mix of the talent of Clemson. And guys like him, that's their time to shine, especially, and grow as a player, because they get lost in the wash of the talent of Clemson and the big names like the Murphys and the Brissets and et cetera.
Capehart.
Yeah.
He hasn't stepped on the field this year, has he? K-Part? Has he played this year?
Yeah, he played a little bit.
I thought they were red shirt now. I know
He's
Okuda played, whatever his name is. I can't pronounce it.
He's got 4. He could play 4 games and be redshirted, so he's well within that limit, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now we got some people that we got to keep up with because that Simpson kid. I heard you say KJ Henry. I'm like, KJ Henry was a 5-star. I think he was top 10, and it's just amazing what type of talent that Clemson has on their defense. And I can't wait the next year to see this guy Barrett they talking about. Because Dabo was pissed that people were saying that he's a linebacker and he's really he's like he can play anywhere he wants to on this team. And then 5-star coming out, but I can't wait for this game, man. I think it's going to be really good. The matchups. I just think Clemson's offense is going to be too much for Ohio State's DBs, and that's why I think Clemson's going to win the game. I think Ohio State's defensive line is pretty good. Harrell is the guy's name, and everybody's talking about he's on the level of Boise and the Boise brothers and the guy that went in the first round last year. I can't think of his name right now. Am I right, Mark?
Who are we talking about?
The defensive lineman from Ohio State, Harrell. Is that his name?
Talking about Haskell Garrett.
Yeah,
he's a really good defensive tackle. Yeah. Interesting story about him. He got shot in the face breaking up a fight this summer.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Ooh. You got
to go as to whether he would be with us for a day or so.
Wow.
You got $19 super chat there. Who gave you that one?
I don't know. We got to get to that, though. I see that. Good stuff. They act like Clemson's defense is the 85 Bears. They have to defend us too. Keep blitzing 47 on third downs. That comes from Go Jay.
Typical overreaction
for the super chat.
Yeah, I think we gave Ohio State, but respect on this channel. About
Mark Rogers asked a question: how does Clemson's defensive line stack up to last season's? We answered it, and now we think they're the 85 Bears. Typical. Thank you for the donation, Go Jay.
Yes, Go Jay. I've got no criticism of your comment.
Man, Ohio State,
you keep donating, and I've got no criticism.
Is really good. I mean, that's the key matchup. It's Ohio State defense that you got to worry about. I think our offense is going to do their thing for Ohio State, but I don't think the defense is the problem.
I think when it all comes down to it, that I just have so many more questions about Ohio State than I do about Clemson. And they're going to have to answer all those questions. They're going to have to answer 5 or 6 more questions than Clemson does.
Right. We're going to see this matchup next year. I mean, we might well get used to it for the next year or two. So
the way things are looking, the way these teams and these programs are going, and the rest of college football not catching up. Yeah, this could be an annual thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and then whoever else is there. I mean, if we look at the talent, the recruits, I mean, I just don't see why it wouldn't be a thing for next year.
I'm going to take Georgia and Oklahoma and Notre Dame out of the mix. Is there anybody else out there that could raise their level of play to where they're a college football playoff participant on a fairly regular basis?
Oregon.
Is that what you just said, DeAndre?
Yep.
Yeah, Oregon.
I believe it when I see it because they're really good at pissing the bed. They do that all the time, no matter how much talent they have, no matter how much they should be winning. But yeah, that would be it. They've plateaued, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah.
The reason I say Oregon is because it's the only conference left wide open at this point.
Yeah,
I mean it's just a numbers thing.
Yeah,
and a recruiting thing. And if they can keep Mario Cristobal there for any extended period of time, I think it's inevitable. Somebody in the chat says Cinnamon 06 says, I don't know how to say your name. It's not Cinnamon, whatever it says. Says USC. That's possible as well. I just think that Clay Helton is on borrowed time compared to somebody like Mario Cristobal. Who knows? Maybe Clay Helton will end up being what they expected him to be when they gave him the job. Who knows?
I think one team that we slip up on is Arizona State. they've been recruiting at an amazing level. I mean, they got a good young quarterback. I think he'll be a junior next year, and they done had some good receivers come out of there in the last couple years. So yeah, you can see it in our own
Did you
conference.
say Arizona State, DeAndre? I'm not asking who's going to the Holiday Bowl for the next 5 years. Arizona State playing with the rest of those schools?
Okay, I mean, it really.
You can come back and laugh at me in 5 years if Arizona State's ripped off 4 college football playoff appearances and they're going 11-1 every year. I feel
about that 4 competitor to come in that challenges Clemson, Ohio State, and
I took 3 away.
Alabama. Yeah, those 3.
So if I throw the 3 back in, it's Georgia, right?
Yeah,
that's another good one. I'll give Georgia the same problem with that Georgia has is some of the other teams in these other conferences that are fighting the big boy at the top, right? So you have the Penn States and the Michigans and whoever else in the Big Ten fighting against that Ohio State team. You have I just see Luke Walker in here, who's a North Carolina fan, said, Mac Brown is building something great at North Carolina, and I would agree, but you still have the elephant in the room at Clemson in the same conference. So if you look around all the conferences, I'd say that Georgia has, although Georgia might be one of the 4 or 5 best programs in the country right now, they still have a tougher road to get there than Oregon does.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying about Arizona State. Arizona State beat Oregon last year, and Arizona State. I mean, Oregon was supposed to be the best team in the Pac-10 last year. I mean, Southern Cal only beat them by 3 points this year. I mean, I don't know. I just think that what they're doing down there is flying under the radar.
I do think that Georgia's that's a fair prospect, no doubt about it.
They've got to solidify the quarterback situation. That's been their problem for so long. And they either do it or they don't. But what's so funny is no matter whether they do, they're still going to recruit very well. They're still going to bring in really good running backs, wide receivers, defense, and everything. They're on the cusp. And I love to take shots at Georgia fans. It's a lot of fun. It's actually a part-time hobby of mine. But the truth is that it has to be annoying being a Georgia fan and being in the mix every year and every year and every year and every year, and you just can't cross over. I mean, you just can't. It doesn't. I mean, that would be. I'd probably have a heart attack.
And
Alabama shows no signs of slowing down.
No.
The offensive line they're bringing in next year is ridiculous. They're ridiculous. I mean, they're going to be great next year. And I don't think that the quarterback is going pro, to be honest with you. Yeah.
We were sitting here 5 or 6 years ago, and we would have said Clemson's ripped off 6 consecutive playoff appearances, et cetera, national championship game appearances. Florida State is this. They are awful. They're Syracuse. They're Duke.
I wouldn't have believed you.
Well, Mark, I think I made this point to you before. How Nick Saban kind of caused Florida State's downfall, because Florida State got a lot of Louisiana players. And when you look at the time when they started having their downfall was when Nick Saban went to LSU. And they started keeping the players at home.
Florida State caused Florida State's downfall. You can't attribute it to anybody other than them.
I would have said, Mark, you need to take your pills and lay down. I mean, it's a truth. I mean, Florida State, they ruined that. It goes back to what I rant and rave about ad nauseum. I mean, heck, me and my brother-in-law, he's a big he graduated Tennessee, so you could see where that came from. But he and I were talking the other night, I mean, about some of the hires that had been made throughout college football, not just this offseason, but past seasons, the future, especially like of Tennessee, Florida State. Florida State is really weird right now. What happened this entire season, that's going to have a lasting effect on them. I know y'all will probably disagree with me. I'm going to be interested to see how Norvell comes out of this season and what happened in this offseason, because, in a couple of days we might change the calendar, but that's not like one of those fobs on Men in Black where you wave it in front of somebody's face and it erases everything. He's got problems, man. And that team is a mess, but they created it. Athletic departments create it. Trustees create it. if they're willing to get behind the program and football is a priority, that's a mess. And Florida State got the product that they invested in.
And they got Milton coming in next year. The kid out of Central Florida got a couple of hurt. So we'll see how they do. But the main problem is their offensive line, man. And it's kind of hard to believe that, 'cause I think Jimbo Fisher was a offensive line coach, and he just recruited that area poorly over the years. You know, and Taggart and the other guy had it. But I still think Carolina, you know, is on the rise. We'll see what Miami's going to do with King coming back next year. They have a lot of talent, too. But I think they can, you know, both of those teams will challenge Clemson. NC State, I know everybody like to laugh, but every 2 or 3 years, your boy will put up a good team. He did it with Chubb and all the
2 or 3 years. Oh, they put up a good team, a pretty good team. Okay,
yeah.
that I can. Just like Pitt, just like Louisville.
Yeah, every 2 or 3
Is that
years.
what we're talking about? Who's putting up pretty good teams? Kansas State, Cal. Okay, there's a lot of them out there.
But
all right, Ole Miss. Okay.
Guys, I can sit here and talk football with you guys all night. I actually have to leave.
Absolutely, Pixie and Pete. Appreciate you
Happy holidays.
and your time, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank everybody in the chat too for hanging up. Even all my haters. I'll see you guys soon. See you, Mark, and everybody else.
See you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
See you, buddy. DeAndre, you should have you should have stopped at Arizona State. I'm gonna hang on for a little bit longer if that's all right, Mark.
Absolutely.
Arizona State. I know what you're talking about with ASU because if you look at
difficult.
At the staff that Herm Edwards is building, he's got Marvin Lewis coaching there. He's got some other big names there. I get it. That was the reach, and I can. But when you started bringing in those other people, my friend, you shot yourself in the foot.
Well, because I'm from North Carolina, I would tell you this about NC State. If you look at like Chubb and those other guys, they've been putting a lot of players in the pros over the years. And sometimes he just built Dave Doran. I know Mark Rogers don't like him very much, but
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, he's a jerk, but what he does,
he's not getting the job done. It has nothing to do whether I like him or not. That is.
I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying,
man, I don't know anything about him. I know he's not getting the job done.
Yeah, because you got Samuel Chubb. You got 4 quarterbacks. I mean, I just think NC State gets a bad rap because they have to go against Clemson every year. But he does have a pretty decent team every 2 or 3 years. I mean, he had an 83 record this year, right?
Brian, DeAndre's he's alluding to this. I posted a video during the offseason to basically say, why does Dave Doran have a job?
I remember that.
7 years at NC State, winning 37% of his games in the ACC. 37% of his games in conference. How in the world do you keep a job?
I don't know.
That's why you schedule Ball State and any little.
Exactly. And so you make it to bowl play every year by going 3-5 in the ACC, and then going 3-1 or 4-0 because you schedule Old Dominion and William and Mary and East Carolina every year. And that's all you play out of
East
conference.
Carolina, we building something over there.
Okay, sorry, not East Carolina. We'll leave them out of that. 1-17 against the top 25 coming into this season.
How many of those was against Clemson though?
Well, 7.
Yeah,
there for 7 years. 7.
Yeah, then Notre Dame.
So 1-10 against everybody else in the top 25. We're not talking about the top 5. So I just don't get why you'd keep that guy around. But he did turn in a nice year this year.
Yeah, and if you fire him, I mean, who are you going to get to replace him? Man, I tell you this, Mark, I appreciate you having us on your show. You're always a good sport because you're always unbiased and you have fun. You let us crazy people on here and have a really, really good time. And we have a good time. I'm looking forward to the game Friday night. And the truth is, I see us meeting again very soon. I see Bama still in it. I mean, it's going to take coaches leaving and something bad happening for the 3 schools, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, not to be in it the majority of the time out of I would probably say next 5 to 7 years. So we'll see, man. But thank you for having me on, and I'll be checking out the channel this week. And thank you all for listening to me while I rant and rave.
Well, Brian, you're always welcome. We appreciate it. Both of you might want to stick around for just a second here because Big Load tells us I'm going to tell you all a quick story about MarkTV.
Big Load has a story.
Let's get the goods on me. Something. I don't know what's going on there.
Hold on. Mark and I went riding down the road one day, hot day. So I rolled down the window, and Mark said, "Don't I have AC?" I said, "Yes, but I don't know what that is." Never mind.
I have no idea where we're headed with all that. Brian, we appreciate it. DeAndre, check these guys out. Bobby Durkin's YouTube, also BGPO Football Funk right here on YouTube as well. Guys, you made it happen. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Are we going to see you on Friday after the game, or?
Yeah, I'm going to be here. I don't duck or hide from anyone. That's for
No.
sure.
That's what I'm saying. I know a lot of times when you have big games, you like to bring on the guys, from the winning and losing side. I'm just asking. I don't make it to Ohio State anyway. It doesn't matter if you're there in Big Ten football. I'll suck you. That is. But I'll be. But I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you, Bobby.
Absolutely,
man.
guys.
Doing good, bro.
Good to see you, DeAndre.
Bobby,
take care, Mark.
Sometime, man.
Yeah, man. We got to do it.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
All right, folks. Appreciate everybody that could join us for our Clemson Ohio State preview. A number of you had asked where are the Ohio State guys, the Buckeye representation. That would be me. I did invite a number of them, and they either could not make it or didn't respond. So I made just as many overtures in that direction to invite Ohio State representation for the chat. So you got stuck with me repping the Buckeyes or trying to balance out the conversation. So I am going to take calls. If any of you would like to call me at 860-325-3687, this can just be an extension of our typical call-in show, and we'll just stay on the line. 860-325-3687. Let me get the banner up there. Also want to remind everyone before I put the number on the screen, you see that crawl down below. If you do your Amazon shopping, please use the link in the description section of any of the videos. Go to any video, grab the link that we provide from Amazon, and please use that to do your Amazon shopping. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Michael, I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. Please forgive me, but I almost missed the stream. I forgot about it starting at 6. I thought it was 7 o'clock.
Oh, that's quite all right, sir. We're here now.
Go ahead. I sent you something earlier when he was on the Big Ten Pete today. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm going to ask you, because I'm not sure if I've done this before. With the exception of Jim Harbaugh and Tom Herman, if they're back this year, can you list of any other coaches that might be on the hot seat next year? Would you include Jeff Brom on that list?
Would I include Jeff Brom to be on the hot seat for next season, meaning if he doesn't meet expectations in 2021, he'll be on the hot seat?
Yeah.
Yes, I would include Jeff Brom to be on that list. Yes.
Or would you give him another year? Because obviously they got the stuff. It's just I'm concerned about the defensive part. That's what I'm trying to figure out and stuff. Because you're going to go through your third defensive coordinator in, 3 years?
Yeah. So when you're talking about hot seats at particular places, I think we also need to consider what type of disappointing season would get him fired. So if I'm running Purdue, I would like to go 8-4 next year, but if he goes 6-6, I don't think he's going to get fired. If they collapse and go 3-9, 4-8, he probably gets fired.
Mm-hmm. Do you think with everything that happened in 2019 with all the fake bid injuries, do you think that was his past year with losing so many people to injuries?
Do I think that Brahms? I'm sorry, Michael. I've had trouble hearing. It's cut up a few times.
What I'm asking is, with all the injuries they had in 2019,
yep,
with Purdue, would that be a past year for Jeff? in your opinion?
Would that be a bad year?
No, a pass year, like a free pass. Because you lost Elijah Sindelar, you lost Lorenzo Neal, you lost.
Well, I think that always has to be
Rondell
taken into
Moore.
consideration. Yes, I don't think it's a free pass. Every team suffers injuries. Their injuries were far greater than most, but so that gets taken into consideration. I don't consider it a free pass, though. No.
No, I was just wondering because some people saying that it is, some people thought that was saying then 20. And then, do you think the season went down south after the Minnesota game with the blown offensive pass interference? Do you think they just might have given up on the season after that?
Well, I hope they
for this year?
didn't give up on the season. There's a whole lot of teams that had poor records early in the season that didn't cave in or give up, like Penn State in particular. So that's another way to evaluate a coaching situation and whether the coach truly has investment in the locker room, that if the coach is able to get guys to still buy in and put in a good effort and want to win the games because they're competitors, I think that says a lot for a head coach.
I agree with that. All right, hey, Mark, thanks for taking my call, and never stop being awesome because you are, man. Thanks.
I appreciate that, Michael. Take care. It's our guy, Michael, asking about the Boilers. We'll have to get together on a off-season preview on Purdue football as we head toward the spring, of course. Our number is 860-325-3687. I will post it in just a second. Bob Stoops was, in fact, 3-0 against Alabama. He beat Nick Saban, I believe, Nick Saban's first year in 2007. Then had the Sugar Bowl win in 2013. And I'm not coming up with the other game, Bob Stoops against Nick Saban, that they played any other games. So anyway, there you go. Uh-oh. Cheryl's letting us know that some of these comments are unreal. I hope that's not a bad thing. Let's see here. Looks like somebody is saying that Nick Saban is overrated. Lisa Sims tells us, last year I was working during the Ohio State Clemson show, so I didn't get to watch the game hardly, but I was trying to keep track of what was going on in the game. This year I'm off for the day. Good for you, Lisa. Shanktopotamus, Mark, do you think Brian Harsin is a used car salesman? I would need to go back and watch his introductory news conference at Auburn, because he's never struck me as that guy. Like Butch Jones strikes everyone as a used car salesman. Houston Nutt had a little bit of that in him, certainly. But Brian Harsin, really? Brian Harsin? Most of the Auburn people that I talk to like the hire. Think it's a solid hire. It's going to have to be a more than solid hire, though, to lift Auburn football. I think everybody seems to be giving Gus Malzahn a bit of a pass in Auburn football, but Auburn football has not, for a program that routinely brings in recruiting classes that are, see, you talk about a video. Somebody just mentioned me getting on a video series here in the off season. Talk about recruiting classes. Here we go for Auburn in this decade that are number 5, 11, 10, 6, 8, 9, 9, 12, 11, 7. They have all recruiting classes in the past decade in the top 12, almost all of them in the top 10. 5, 11, 10, 6, 8, 9, 9, 12, 11, and 7. And they're losing 4 and 5 games every year. I understand the schedule's difficult, but Gus Malzahn was barely over 500 in the SEC after that championship game appearance in 2013. Bleach Orange is telling us Gus has done very well at Auburn considering the competition he plays every year. Half his division is in the top 10 every year in the SEC West. There is a lot of truth to what you just said, as I mentioned the same thing. However, you need to be able to perform, and the division's not as tough as it was at its peak. Yes, it's the best division in college football. But winning 55% of your games in the conference is not acceptable at Auburn. Bleach Orange had never heard of Brian Harsin. Not a big group of 5 football fan. OU won a home and home with Alabama in 02-03. Okay. Cinnaminson, you are then incorrect about Bob Stoops' record against Nick Saban. Okay? Nick Saban was not at Alabama in 2002 and 2003. Nick Saban was at LSU in 02 and 03. Therefore, I believe Bob Stoops' only game against Nick Saban would have been that 2013/14 Sugar Bowl. Okay? So no, Bob Stoops is not 3-0 against Nick Saban. Shanktopotamus, will the Boise State offense be effective in the SEC? Mark, well, I would expect, really watch college football, really watch the offensive plays, formations, approach. Who plays that different of an offense anywhere other than the 3 service academies, other than Wisconsin to a certain extent, Iowa to a certain extent? There are nuances to the spread formation, but everybody's going with 4 wide receivers, spread formation, an H-back, not a tight end, except for the schools that I mentioned. Yes, the Boise State offense can be effective in the SEC. They're going to have road graders up front, though, that are much more talented. And really, that was Auburn's downfall this past season. They had an ineffective offensive line. Their offensive line play was not up to SEC caliber, and that was their worst unit on the team. All right, folks, I think that pretty much wraps it up for a Monday night. Appreciate all of you jumping on board to make it happen tonight. Had a great conversation on Clemson, Ohio State, and the college football playoff. We will have plenty of previews on all the bowl games. And certainly, if you've got any requests or recommendations, please send them my way. If you've got a contact for a sponsor, please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. MarkRogersTV at Gmail for a sponsorship. And appreciate you being here. And we will get out the live show time to be determined for tomorrow night. So it's Tuesday night. Let's do this. Got it already. Miami and Oklahoma State play in the Cheez-It Bowl at 5:30 Eastern time. Therefore, we're going to do a Miami live stream on the Miami channel after the game. And then after the Texas-Colorado game, that's going to be about midnight. About midnight here, we will be live right here to take your calls at midnight Eastern time. And again, over on the Miami channel to take your calls after the Miami game around 9 o'clock. Right here, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. See you soon.